Good morning, Rabboisai. First time was much better. Leilu nishmas mordechai. It's an unbelievable simcha every single day now. Last night we had some new guests. Noam Fix is in the house, finally. A year. It's been a year. Shmuel Bernard. Unbelievable. A guest. Mamish a guest. It's unbelievable. Tremendous, tremendous simcha. Today's shir is being sponsored by Eli Dyckman, and for the rest of the week, Eli Dyckman, leilu nishmas, Hendel Miriam, Basar Mordechai Duvid, my wife's grandmother who passed away yesterday. I'm not changing it, even though she was nifta 3 days ago. It says on the thing yesterday, it's yesterday. And not from COVID. Rabbi said, don't be choish, it was from COVID. This is not it. By Elchanan Pressman. I don't know if you recall, Elchanan Pressman is the one that pressed me to give a chumash here every day, every Shabbos. Something like that. In honor of a double yartzheit, my mother, Yocheved Bas Elchanan, as well as her father, my grandfather, Elchanan Ben Yaakov Yitzchok, both on Bais Adar Aleph, some 40-ish years apart. The Shom should have an aliyah. By David Steinlauf, yartzheit of my mother, Rakhel Bas Yisrael Avraham. I think that's how you pronounce it. Rákhel, maybe Rákhel, Rákhel. Ira Greenstein, Lezecher Nishmat, Uncle Abe. Avraham Eliezer ben Reb Tzvi Hirsh, Friedman, Lezecher Tzadik Levracha, on his 24th yartzeit. 2nd of Adar. This is from, you know what, let me show you this picture. What is wrong with this picture? There are 4 pictures of the Chofetz Chaim here. 4. Even this thing right over here has 2 of the Chofetz Chaim. What is wrong with this picture? I didn't know if I should laugh or cry when I saw this. Not the Chofetz Chaim. I hope this is for Purim. Whatever. I don't know if I should laugh. Chofetz Chaim, Chofetz Chaim, Chofetz Chaim, Chofetz Chaim. Whatever. Fine. Listen, this is from Elchanan Pressman's house. I think I did both last night. I laughed and then I cried. Unbelievable. Okay. This is dear Belly, it was not by chance. This is from Elchanan Pressman that you gave over a beautiful Torah on Sunday. Bite on last week's parasha. Each time you throw us a crumb, you renew our hopes for the weekly chumash here in the initiation that we eagerly await b'meher b'yameinu. I think he stopped saying something because I said, if the more you say it, the more I'm not going to, okay, whatever. That was like a long time ago. He's a great guy. I met him in Muncie, a chush of a guy. One of my mother's, I'm just saying it because who else would have a picture of me on the wall, whatever. If he was not a chush of a guy, the whole picture would, one of my mother's constant, lot. It started. You saw how low I was. I was pretty close to the floor over there. One of my mother's constant refrain was to keep our eyes on our own basket. Again, to that vart. So, today, okay, great. Elchanan Pressman. Rabbi Isai, here's an email. It's late, but there's a bunch of New Yorkers on now. Give them a shtickle email, not a whatever. It's a long one. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Thank you so much for the Torah you're giving over. This is from Nathan Barth from Malay Adumim. About 2 months ago, my wife, daughter, and myself were told we had to go into Bidud. After about half a day, as expected, I began to go a little crazy, I think it says here. I had previously tried to get into the Daf, either learning on my own or various internet sites, but it never worked. That is, until I found your Daf site. My Bidud was transformed into lemonade. That's the name of the email, Lemons and Lemonade. I remember listening to the limud you gave on the first day of Pesachim. You said that learning Gemara encompasses all aspects of Torah, Chumash, Nach, Drash, Agada. You also explained why perfection is the enemy of learning the Daf Yomi. Those 2 pillars have stuck with me and have given me the strength to stick with it most of the time. Especially appreciate all the efforts you put into making charts of arguments, which greatly simplifies and enhances understanding, especially those like myself who do not have a background. One thing I'd like to say is that although I always have my shansin open, I'm rarely able to follow. I would like to, that's on Amud Beis, I'm sure he's talking about. Not Amud Aleph, everybody can follow. I would like to suggest that perhaps 2 or 3 times during the Daf Limud, the cameraman could show the viewers on Zoom and YouTube exactly where you're holding. I don't know, could you do the Abraham, this thing? Yeah, he's shaking his head, yeah. We have it over there. It's in the Beis Medrash. If you come to Beis Medrash, there's a pointer that shows exactly where we're holding during the shir. So he says he could pan to it. Several weeks ago, we gave a shout out to someone who's looking for a shidduch. It gave me an idea, allowed me to explain. I'm not going to go into it, but basically, he has two girls that he worked with, one from a Haredi family, one from a Dati Leumi family. Bekitzer, he wants to do the shidduch initiative. We have the shidduch initiative guy here. He just showed up. No, I'm fixed. He's in charge. Resumes, no. He's saying no. Okay. Rabbi Isai, today we finished from the beginning of Brachas. Yeah, we said this. This is the Elchanan Pressman. Oh, it's. I agree. Yeah. Okay. Good. Today is 15% into Shas. We finished 15% since the beginning of Brachas. That's from our statistician, Reb David Feinberg. So now, just a quick question. A lot of people ask me when I do this. They say, "Amen." Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvaroi. Amen. You guys could say Amen. Could you say Amen over Zoom? We'll try to kind of stick it into the sugya if possible, if we have some time. Although it's not really the sugya here, but it's interesting that I noticed that the place can talk about it based on this sugya. So, we're in the middle of a sugya here, Daf Pehei. We're a couple lines down into Pehei, but we'll just do a quick review. We had a machloikis between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. If you break a bone, could somebody get me the bone in the refrigerator? There's still a bone in the fridge. You want to get it? Shkoyach. If somebody breaks the bone and there's no meat in the place of the break, the meat is somewhere up the bone. You over or not? Machloikis, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. It's all the way on the bottom of Pedal and Amud Beis. According to Shkoyach, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you're over Isser. It doesn't matter that there's no meat there. According to Rish Lakish, not. So, the Gemara brings what? Makawai. Oh, okay. Stop talking again. Okay, fine. Lechovid, no, you got to speak to him afterwards, whatever. So, he asked the kasha. So he brings a brayso that says that you're over with a bone that doesn't have meat and does have meat. Now, if a bone doesn't have meat, of course, you're not over anything. A bone without meat is nothing. You could throw it in the garbage. So, Rabbi Yochanan brought a right himself that it doesn't have meat means it doesn't have meat at the place of the break. It's a little bit lower. So now we're holding Daf Pehei Amud Aleph. Loi. All the way on top, first word. Hachika Amar. Echad etzem sheyesh alav kazayis basar mibachutz. Echad etzem sheyesh alav kazayis basar mibachutz. Sheyesh alav kazayis basar mibifnim b'makim shvira. So Rish Lakish says no. Not having meat doesn't refer to not having meat at the place of the break. There is meat at the place of the break. But you know where? Inside. You see, this doesn't have any meat on the outside, but there's a nice amount of meat. I'm not opening this up. There's a nice amount of meat on the inside. That's what it's saying. And you're still over. This meat on the inside is edible, and it constitutes meat in terms of the isser of shviras etzem. Votanya, and I'll prove it to you. Prove it to you that you're not allowed to break a bone that doesn't have meat on the outside, but has meat, the marrow on the inside. Votanya ve'etzem le'sishburu boy. It says in the pasuk you should not break a bone. Echad etzem sheyesh bo mayach ve'echad etzem she'en bo mayach. As we said before, whether it has marrow or not. So when the Torah says you must eat meat, obviously it's talking about the meat on the outside. Maybe. Maybe it's talking about you should eat the meat. Which meat? The marrow. There's a ton of it. Look at this. All this is edible. It's a lot. But the Torah says, how are you going to get to this? Okay, you're telling me the Torah means you should eat the inside meat. How do you get to it? The only way to get to it is if you break it, but you're not allowed to break it. That's referring to a bone that doesn't have marrow. A bone, a tiny bone, whatever it is, that doesn't have marrow inside, that the Torah says you shouldn't break. But a larger bone like this, you should break in order to get to the meat, and that's what you make the mitzvah. Maybe that's what you have to do. Don't be so Mishtaimim, don't wonder, Sharei Yova Yasevi Yitchel Lezecher. You're allowed to break the bone. The Leisasev, Etzem Leisish Beruba, you're allowed to break that in order to be Mekayim and Asay of V'achul Zabos V'layla Zeh. Kshuoy Mebezim Leish Beruba, that's Leisasev, B'Pesach Sheni. It says it again. Shein Tamud Loimar, you don't have to repeat yourself, Shari Kvan Nemar. There's a pasuk that says, Kechol Chukas HaPesach Yasu Oisai. Pesach Sheni equals Pesach Rishon. Whatever we do, all the mitzvahs, all the averos on Pesach Rishon, you're supposed to do on Pesach Sheni. So then why does the Torah repeat itself and say you can't break a bone? Tell us that the achilas basar, this that we eat on Pesach, is the meat that's on top of the bone as well. You're not mechuyev to go inside to get that marrow. Now, Rashi just points out, the Torah would not tell you, we had yesterday an eitzah. How do I get the marrow without being over on a breaking a bone? You make a hole. How do you make a hole? You take a coal, you put it on top. Says Rashi, it's impossible that the Torah would tell me to do something that might come to an isser. Because yesterday we spoke about paka, it could break, potential breaking. So the Torah will never, it's Yahrzeit in the Torah. The Torah will never give you something to do that you might come to do an isser. Anything the Torah tells you to do, you're clear. You're going to stay away from Yisurim. And that is something that you might come to do an isser. Okay, Meisvei. Now, it's interesting. We are going to be learning this Mishnah Be'ezer Hashem today. And we're going to be talking about this Mishnah until we get to the Mishnah at least twice. So we're going to know this Mishnah very well. Meisvei. Eiver shiyotza miktzosai. You have a limb that came out of Yerushalayim, according to Rashi. Part of it comes out of Yerushalayim. What's the procedure? What you do is, you take a knife and you make a nice circle, exactly at the point that it comes out. So it comes out over here, you take a knife, you start cutting around and around. And then, and then he peels back the good meat. Here's a picture. There's a bunch of pictures in Kol HaShalom, but I only got one. So this is the bad stuff. This is the stuff that went outside of Yerushalayim. Here's a nice cut. You can see a straight cut up and down. The part that went outside of Yerushalayim, he doesn't really mess with. You don't break the bone over here. There's a way. You take a saw and break the bone right over here. The good stuff stays inside, you eat it. The bad stuff you'll burn. No, that's not what you do. You cut it nicely on the meat. You peel back the meat so you could eat it. And then you make a clean break by the joint. Right over here. This is the joint, the pulki, whatever. This is on a sheep. Break it off right over here. You can't. It's usher. Once this meat leaves, this meat becomes 100% usher. The other problem is this meat is 100% mutter, and you must eat every tiny bit of it. You're not allowed to leave a single bit. So what do? You make a very clean cut right over here, and you show this is the stuff that needs to be burnt. This stuff you must eat every crumb. The problem is the breaking of the bone. Break it nicely in the mutter part. That's the Mishnah on Amud Beis. According to Rish Lakish, there's no isser to break a bone where there's no meat. So then why do you have to pull back all the meat? Just pull back an inch and break it right there. It seems like they knew what they were doing in those days. It wasn't a big deal for them to break bones. They had all the tools. Break it, nice break. Abai Omar, the same thing as he said yesterday, but in a different place. Mishum Pekah. We're concerned that if you break it, you might crack it. Cracking is asur. You might crack it where it's mutter. Ravin Omar Bekoilis. We're talking about the thigh. It has a lot of marrow. And Memela, that is meat. That part is edible. It's the same thing as the marrow inside is like the meat on the outside. It's the same thing. These are meats that we need to eat. We need to be careful with, so you need to pull it all the way back. Says the Gemara. By the way, there are, you might come up with more. I was able to think of 3 phobias that a typical Jew has. Phobia number 1, at least with my kids, I'm basing it on my family. They hate to become fleishiks. If you become fleishiks, somebody might offer you Klein's, and it's a problem. Somebody offers you a chocolate bar, what are you going to do? You're fleishik. The other phobia is people are very scared to say hamapil at night. You say hamapil, so then the phone rings, what are you going to do? You're not going to talk? Third thing is people are very, very scared to wash their hands. You wash your hands, you might have to say a mitzi. I'd rather eat mezainis all day long than to wash my hands. I've said, you know what, schlep it, especially if you have to say yalav yavai. So there's a yisayid. One of these phobias might be here in the Gemara. It's not awesome. If you have any others, I'm sure you guys are thinking of other ones. Whatever, the others. What are you thinking? You have another one? There's other phobia. Okay, fine. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. You have to live here. These backyard minyanim are so geschmack. You could exercise. You could talk whenever you want because I'm not talking in the shul. I'm in my backyard. What do you mean? But I'm in shul now. I'm Yartzeit Kaddish on the Kibbutz now. But when it comes to Chazal Shatz, you're allowed to shmooze anywhere you want because what? It's a driveway. You're allowed to shmooze a driveway. Anyway, so yeah, there's a phobia to go back to shul. I could hear that 100%. So we touched upon this halacha that noisar, we spoke about noisar, pigul as well. What's pigul? Again, all through zvachim. If a kohen, as he's performing one of the avodas, he thinks in his brain that he's going to eat, this carbon is going to be eaten outside the time that you're allowed to eat it. A typical carbon has a time, either 1 day in a night, 2 days in a night. But anything past that, you think to yourself, he's going to eat it next week. It's issa deraisa, and if somebody actually eats it, even beforehand, you get karas, fine, the pigul. If a kohen thinks this pigul machshava in his mind, he just ruined the carbon for his friend, the Yisrael brings $1,000 behema, in his mind all he has to do is say, this is going to be eaten next month for Purim, puzzle. He ruined it, now the owner has to go and pay another $1,000. So what did Chachamim do? They made the hands of the kohen, they punished him. They made his hands tamei. It's only a sheni. It's a very interesting tumah because tumah means the whole body. Over here, just the hands. It's a knas. Why? We're concerned that the kohen is going to be a jerk. He's going to be a rasha, and he has something against this Yisrael guy. The guy did something bad to him, didn't give him an aliyah and shul or something. Thinks in his head, passes the guy's carbon and says, oh, by the way, I made a shtickle mistake. I thought that you're allowed to eat a carbon for 6 days. I forgot. It's only that. Your carbon is possible. Go get another one. So you got him good. So we tell him, if you're going to do that, by the way, you're going to have to wash your hands. It's a pella atzum. To be over iser of ben al chaver ruin the guy's carbon, that he's not concerned. To make pigul and Bais Hamikdash, which is sedar raisa, he's not concerned. To go wash his hands, you tell him, oh, you're going to have to go wash your hands? Oh, I don't want to wash my hands. So I have my own pshat, and I thought I was so excited about my pshat. And then today, I see Taisus talks about it. And he brings the Gemara in Yuma. You look on the side there, smack in the middle of the page. We had the famous Gemara. They would kill a man. They would kill people. And not cause tumah. Okay. But if you want to hear my pshat, I'll just say it real quick. Not pshat. That sometimes, if you have a collision happening, you have a isser and your taiva. So sometimes your taiva will win, even though the isser is tremendous. It's isser deraisa. But if you put in a side thing, similar to the idea of if you have a Kabbalah, on a diet or any Kabbalah, you say to yourself, I'm going to give, I said to give $1,000 to tzedakah, $500, whatever you can't afford, whatever hurts your pocket, to tzedakah that you don't like, right? But what's the idea in that? Not only the money part, but it's based on a Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah says, you give a little bit of tzedakah. If it's a side thing, anytime it's a side thing, if there's a collision course, then a weaker guy could win. But once you introduce something else from the side that has nothing to do with the collision course, you're going to have to walk around the block. Oh, okay, then it shakes you up. And you don't do it. That's the yesod here in this sugya also, I believe. Anyway, Zok the Gemara. No. It's because it's a, what do you call it? It's not a grama. What's the word? Garmi. It's a garmi. It's not. He's not chayiv. But he's what do you call it? He's pass the carbon. Yeah. Well, I think I'm pretty sure we discussed it in Kachim. Hezek shein nikar. Fine. Zog the Gemara. So we have one svara that we don't want the kohen to damage the Yisrael. We want people to eat. You tell them, listen, you have to finish up the carbon. They might not want to finish up the carbon, even the Yisrael. But once you say, listen, if you don't finish up the carbon, you're going to have to wash your hands. Oh, you wash your hands. Hashem Yirach. No, I don't want to do that. Even though I'm stuffed, I'm going to stuff myself more. Mar masna pigul, umar masna noisar. One says his vart on pigul. Pigul is where the kohen could damage the Yisrael. Noisar is just left over. It's not in the hands of the come on too, that the kohanim are lazy. Man de masna pigul, mishum chashdi kuhuna, man de masne anoisar mishum atzli kuhuna. Now, how much of the meat needs to remain in order for it to become tamei? Mar masna kizayis. You need only a kazayis, a very small shear. Uma masna kibeitza, a larger shear. Man de masna kizayis ki isurai. How much? What is the shear of noisar of pigul? A kazayis. So in order to become tamei for my hands, if I touch a kazayis of this pigul, my hand becomes tamei. That's okay. I think we'll understand this one a little bit more. Man de masna kazayis ki surei, man de masna kibeitza ki tumasai. But typically, how much food do you need to be metama something else? A kabeitza. So how much food do you need to be metama a hand? A kabeitza. Zog di Mari Boilu. So we spoke about pigul, we spoke about noisar. What about the third halacha that it's always brought together, yartzheit? If I take the animal outside of its designated area, whatever that area is, if it's kachim. No, you weren't here last night, but I explained why it might have been a blooper, because I was saying when a chatas is kachim, maybe that's what I said. Not that it's made in kachim versus kachikalim. Maybe. Not that it goes into kachim. Kachim is kodesh hagadashim, but a chatas is kachim versus kachikalim. Anyway, I'm just thinking, I don't know. Yartzeit, so if it's kachikalim, it can't go outside Yerushalayim. Once it leaves the wall of Yerushalayim, then it's yartzeit. It's usher, right? It's usher to eat that meat. You got to get rid of it. Or if it comes out of the azara, if it's the chatas, it can't come out of the azara. So yartzeit goes rabbanan tuma Eli. What if a kohen touches the yartzeit? Do his hands become tamei? Mi amrin and said the gozer tuma the asal liatzulei bay. It's a problem of becoming lazy. And lazy, by the way, you're not doing anything. What does lazy mean? It's in a pan, in a bowl. I didn't touch it. I didn't do anything. I just didn't need it. So it's a sheval taisa. Al yartzeit apuki biyadayim lemavkilei biyadayim. To do an avera, to pick up the meat and take it outside of Yerushalayim, that's a kumbasei. I'm not choshish that. Like gozer rabbanan tuma, I don't have to go out of my way and make zeres here. Perhaps it's within the same category. Yartzeit, noiser, pigul, they're all the same. Toshma. Again, going back, Amud Beis. So when we get to Amud Beis, we could fly through it as usual. I'm telling you, Amud Beis is always easier than Amud Aleph. And much shorter. Turn the page, you'll see. Much shorter. Always. Besides, pay dalet on the base. Shtickle agadta. Tashma aver shiyatzim miktsasai. We just had the Mishnah. A limb, part of the limb goes outside of Yerushalayim. The part that goes out becomes also. What do? You make a nice cut, a straight cut down to the bone. And then he peels back the good part until it gets to the joint, breaks the bone. The Amers goes away rabbanan tuma. Ooh, major, beautiful word here. If the part of the animal that left the wall of Yerushalayim is tamei, guess what? That part that's tamei is touching the part that's inside Yerushalayim. It should make the entire animal tamei. What's the answer? Oh, that's what Leiby said before about something else. What do you gain by cutting? It's going to be metame, the rest of the carbon. Says the Gemara, tumas starmi, v'tumas starmi le'mitamya. We went through this whole thing. It's very. What's touching? What is touching? Which part of my finger is touching the other finger? It's a part that you can't see. The top part that you see is not touching. It's slightly below the surface that's touching. Okay, I'm not going to go into the outer peel exactly what's touching what not when we're learning Zvachim. But the main part is that this is touching this, and it's not seen. And something that you don't see doesn't create tumah. There's no tumah. It's Bais Adar, it's hidden. V'tumah starim lemitamya. Ravina says when it comes to food, you're going to cut it up, you're going to chop it up. So these two fingers touching, if they're food, it's not a good. They're not a chibur. They're not connected at all because I'm about to cut it. They're like separated. Now you have two pieces that are touching each other. Don't tell me that they're hidden. They're not. They're halachically not hidden. They're not touching each other, but they're touching. Enough to give tumah, but not enough to hide it. So you have to say, if you say that the shear is a kazayis, the lesbe kazayis. There's an isur yartzeit, it went outside, but it's not a kazayis. Uman demasne kebeitza, the lesbe kebeitza. L'maisa, whatever goes outside Yerushalayim, you can't eat. I don't care what the shear is, you can't eat it. But in terms of the tumah, there's not enough tumah here. There's not enough. Either there's no kebeitza, there's no kazayis. Tashma. Hamoitzi b'sar pesach mechabura l'chabura. We're going to have a whole sugya about it, but we're going to actually touch the sugya today, talk a little bit about it. We're going to go into it deeper tomorrow, the day after. Here, you have two tables. They're eating a korban pesach. You're not allowed to bring this chabura's korban pesach, which is a different, according to Rashi, it's a different korban completely, even though they're in the same room. I cannot go from here to here. I can't bring the piece of steak and bring it over here. It says, it's tar. My love, tahar va'asr. Now, it seems like it's tar, but you're not allowed to go. You're not allowed to bring from one side to the other. It says in the pasuk, the Gemara is going to bring it later, might as well see it here. Your group has to be in one house. You're not allowed to take, this is the raisa. In a month and a half, we have to know this stuff. You can't share your steak with your neighbors. You can't take, here's some of my korban pesach. You want to taste how I did it? How did yours come out? You can't go from one house to the other. Isser da'iraisa. Loisaitzim min habayis min habasar chutza. By the way, it's the same pasuk that we were learning a lot. The pasuk we were discussing today. That's at the end of the pasuk. Fine. So he says, what's the difference if I have a wall around Yerushalayim, a wall around a Beis HaMikdash, or a wall of a house? They're all leaving a designated area. They're both, so you're asking, there's a concept called Yaartzeit. I take the carbon from one side of the wall of Yerushalayim, take it to the outside of Yerushalayim. It's Yaartzeit. You can't eat it anymore. It's puzzle. You have to burn it. Yes. So then what's the difference if I take it out of the house? Puzzle. Now, just like I go outside of my house, it's tahar, there's no tumah. So too, you asked me a question. What if I take my korban pesach and bring it outside of the wall of Yerushalayim? Does it become tamei? If a kohen touches it, does he have to wash his hands? Here's the answer, l'chayra. They're identical cases in different ways. Taking it outside of Yerushalayim, taking it outside of my house. They're both yaartzeit. But taking it outside my house, it says tar. My hands don't become tamei. So too, taking it out of Yerushalayim, my hands should not become tamei. Amalei goes rabbanan tuma. Lo, not a good raya. Tar umutar. It's completely tar and it's mutar to eat the yotzei mechabur l'chabur lav ki yotzei chutz l'mchitzasi dami v'loy mifsal. It's not like taking it outside of Yerushalayim. If I take it from one group to another group, like over here, so I was over the raisa, but my korban pesach is still kosher. I could eat it. I was over Eliezer. So it's not similar to taking it outside of the mechitza of Yerushalayim, which passes the carbon. This doesn't pass the carbon. I'm just over Eliezer. It says that if you eat it, you're over alav. It has a kazayis. In other words, what? What are you eating? How much are you eating? A kazayis. Because when it comes to eating food, it's usually a kazayis. But it doesn't have a kibetza, in other words, for tumah. So for the achila part, I have enough. I have a kazayis. For the eating part, for the tumah part, I don't have enough. But if you say that the whole shear is a kazayis, the tumah is a kazayis, over here you see that we weren't geyser tuma on Yartzeit. Ela b'Yartzeit Pesach loymen b'Yarlan. The legazer rabbanon tuma. Of course, once the Korban Pesach goes out of Yerushalayim, everybody agrees there is no tuma. The legazer rabbanon tuma my time of b'nei chaburos reasonheim umizar zehirbe. Says Rashi, since there's many people in every group, right? Because there's an isser d'oraisa to leave over any of the Korban Pesach. So usually you have many people participating in the Korban Pesach. They want to make sure you have to eat it ala soiva. Also, you can't just fresh Korban Pesach. It has to be that you're very much satiated to the last point, and you eat the last kazait. So there's many people on this Korban Pesach. There's so many people. Each one is going to remind you, hey, don't take it out. Don't be over on Yaartzeit. So where's the shayla? On a regular carbon, you don't have a lot of people in a group on a regular carbon. We have a shayla. When you take it outside of Yerushalayim or outside of the wall of the Azara, is it metami your hands? Yes or no? Teiku. Umoitzi b'sar Pesach mechabura lechabura minayin. So Rashi again says, this is where Rashi says it, that there are two psachim. So how do I know this whole isser? We just turned to Daf Yomi spatzbekeshnafshi.org. Schus for the struggling kids in pain of Cholei Yisrael. It's a guy that had a job and he decided to jump into this and take care of Yiddish kinder. For Refuah Shelayma for all Cholei Yisrael, especially from our MDY Mishpacha, please consider joining MDY Tehillim group at tehillim.8mindaf.com. So here, where's the pasuk again? So if you see in here, there's two green words. Loisoitzi should be enough. I don't need chutza to the outside. So what do these words tell us? It makes a lot of sense, right? If I were to ask you, you're going from your living room to your living room. A lot of people have the two tables on the Lela Seder. From one table to the other. If they're different korbanos, you're over Issa Deraisa. Unbelievable. Who would ever know this? If you don't do the daf, you probably wouldn't know this halacha. It doesn't mean outside of your house, it means outside of your chabura. So you could actually get two malchus here. One for taking it out to this is the Rambam. One for taking it to the next table is a Issa Deraisa, and one for eating it afterwards. And here's a Chiddush Atzum. If I go from one table to the other, I only establish the Isser in a Chayiv Achiyaniach. I have to put it down. Where do we have the concept of putting it down? Look at this. It says, Toitzi. It's Hilchah Shabbos. Akira and Hanocha. I have to lift it up and put it down on the other table. Just lifting it up and showing it off to the people on the other table, I'm not over yet. Where do we see such a thing? Nowhere. Look, Haitzah, when it came to the wall, we're going to see in a second. You take it out of the wall. Do you have to put it down by the wall? What did it say? No, you just stick out the aver to the other side of the wall. So let's see if that's true. You have to do both. You have to lift up the Korban Pesach from your chabura and bring it to the next table from the other chabura, unless they're part of your chabura, of course. But if they're another group and they're eating their own Korban Pesach and you put it down on their table, you're over. Interesting. Because the Minchas Chinuch that I mentioned last night, it was a riddle for those of you that weren't here last night. Is there a problem of chewing on a bone on a Shabbos afternoon? You chomp. Look at that. So Shmuel Rozovsky brings from this Minchas Chinuch, I don't know what he's going to do with this one. Minchas Chinuch says, why can't you break a bone? He's giving a tam dekra. You have to act like a king. You have to act like Bnei Melachim. Bnei Melachim don't sit there and chew on bones. And Mamela, it should be a little bit of a problem, he says, on a typical Shabbos. Don't sit there, don't act like a peasant. You're a Ben Melech. Treat yourself like a Ben Melech. Over here also, he says, the Minchas Chinuch says, not Reb Shmuel Rozovsky. Chinuch says, I know that it's a little different nowadays. He says, a Ben Melech doesn't show off his food to his friend. He doesn't go outside, hey, look, here, you see what my wife made? He stays at home. He's chashiv. He has a chashivas. You bring to him, maybe. He doesn't go show you. And maybe that's the isser of going from chabura to chabura. So according to Shmuel Rozovsky, it's not appropriate to go share your food with your neighbors. Although it's very much a minhag here in this neighborhood. Pictures. Today it's WhatsApp. Wow, what my wife made. So we're talking about the Bahar Elam Dava, right? There's different cows that you have to burn, and we mentioned it. We were talking about all this stuff the other day, last week sometime. Remember, you have to burn these, the Par of Yom Kippur, the Bahar Elam Davar, if the Sanhedrin made a mistake and everybody did an Avera, you burn a Par. Where do you burn it? Outside of them are 3 mechitzos. Machnas Shechina, Levia, Mitzayra. So the three machnos, I should say. This thing weighs a lot. I don't know if you ever try to lift one of those. A whole ox. Thousands of pounds, 2,000 pounds, right? So they take 2 poles, hang this animal, and they start bringing it out. Now, there's a special halach when it comes to these parim, that the people carrying the par, their clothes become tamei, they have to be tovel the clothes. The chibes simloisav, right? Now, when do they become tamei? It's interesting, says the Gemara, that since this cow, let's say it's 8 feet long, I don't know how long a cow is, right? So as the first group, the first 2 guys, whoever carrying the cow, they leave the azara, the azara. As they come out of the azara, where's the azara here? Azara. This whole area, the azara, the heichal, the Kodesh Kadashim is over here again, but this area is the azara. Once they leave over here, wherever they go out, then they become tamei. But the first 2 guys, or whoever people are holding it, they become tamei first. Mitami begodim. Then their begodim become tamei immediately. Let's say, this is very interesting. Let's say the guys in the back, they go, it's too heavy for me. So they switch out people. So their begodim didn't become tamei because they never left the azara. Meanwhile, the guys that left the azara, the guys in the front, they're begodim tamei. So it's possible that the guys in the back, they're begodim not tamei. The guys in the front, they're begodim tamei. Ask the Gemara. How are the people in the front, how did their clothes become tamei? They never put down the poles. It's not considered yartzheit. According to you, it's not yartzheit. Until you put it down, you need an akira and an anacha. There's no anacha. They're dragging on the ground. Now, Taisus points out, it doesn't need to drag on the ground. It needs to be within 3 tefachim of the ground. Which typically, if you have the whole animal, it's most likely going to be within 3 tefachim on the ground. The legs and everything, 3 tefachim on the ground. What? What do you mean just stand? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, Cholei Yisrael. But they're holding it. It's in their reshus. Or you're saying that in Hilchas Shabbos, if you stop, I hear. All right, Zok the Mishnah. This is, I hope you guys know this Mishnah. You have a limb that, yes. Yeah, here we go. So he's texting me to let you know that we're now at 15% of shots. But I said it in the beginning of Shir. Tell the official scorekeeper that he needs to listen to the entire Shir from beginning to end. Oh, what he meant to say is, in middle of the daf, from this Mishnah, this word Rabbi say is 15%. Because it's, I guess he counted, he's a statistician, he counted all the words. Exactly. It goes from the middle of the Mishnah. Okay. Rabbi says, you should know, you just account. To me, it's depressing. Only 15%. But I guess it's a lot for some people.
Shot that right down, right there. You wouldn't let it get through.
You heard what he said, Avi? He said if Noam was at home getting all these texts, he would have shot that down. He wouldn't let it through on Zoom. You have to do a better job, he's saying. Mas Nissen, Zok the Mishnah. You already know what it looks like. I don't have to show you the picture. You make a straight cut, peel back the good stuff, this stuff is usher to eat, this stuff is mutter to eat, mechuyev to eat, and you make a nice cut, break by the joint. But a regular carbon, it's not a problem. You use one of these, and you give it a nice chaparoo, and it's done. You don't have to worry for breaking bones. So, without going into great detail, there's a gra here and the primigodim. From the doorstop and inside is all considered inside, la halacha, min hagav lachutz kilachutz, and from the doorstop and on is considered that you left Yerushalayim, you left the Beis Hamikdash, hachaloynos, the windows, va'oivi hachayma kilifnim. So, if you are on top of the wall, you're like inside Yerushalayim. That's an amazing chiddush because we're going to see in a second that within the doorway of Yerushalayim is not Yerushalayim. So you're in the door, you're not in Yerushalayim. You're on top of the door on the wall, you're in Yerushalayim. So it's a big chiddush. When it comes, says Rashi, to a minyan, and this is very neged to us, when we're talking about minyanim, outdoor minyanim, how you mitzdarf to a minyan. Says Rav, you're mitzdarf to a minyan.
By the way, Eli, we also forgot the official new Mishnah.
There's no official Mishnah. There's nobody sponsored this Mishnah. There is? We just did an official Mishnah sponsored by official. I didn't know. Nobody told me. You have to tell me these things. We'll schmooze later. I guess we have plenty of time. Obviously, we have plenty of time. Noam has just been expelled from this marriage. She's going back to his duties. Listen to this, Rabbi say, you saw it in life. Who knows everything that's inside a person's heart. So you can have a metal wall between you. It's a song, but it's 801. Okay, Shari Demois Lo Ninalo, that's something else. We're talking about Mechitza Shel Barzel. Mechitza Shel Barzel. No, but this is a song. Avish brought. This is a regular song. Maybe Mechitza Shel. So tomorrow we'll start off shit with Mechitza Shel Barzel. We gotta go weiter. We gotta finish the Amud. Mechitza Shel Barzel. The computer, the song computer, the this. What did you call him, Jonathan? Come on. A metal wall will not stop one Jew that's outside of the minyan. Why? Because Baruch Hu knows everything. So this is a typical classic Gemara question. I'll take the Reisha, be medayik from it, take the Sefer, be medayik, I'll come up with the opposite diuk. From this doorstop and inside is kilifnim, like inside the house. But from the doorstop and outside is considered not inside. But if I'm going to view it from the outside, up to the doorstop is considered outside. So the actual doorstop in the time of the Gemara was very, very wide. It could be 2 feet wide, the entire stop, the width of the door. What is that considered? Outside or inside? Lo kasha. Kan b'shari azara, kan b'shari Yerushalayim. So when we're talking about the azara, let's say right over here, here's a wall to the azara, door to the azara. Kan b'shari Yerushalayim. The Gemara explains. The Omar b'shmuel bar Rav Yitzchok mepnei malin iskatzu shari Yerushalayim. The actual doorways of Yerushalayim here, a doorway of Yerushalayim is not kadosh. Person has saras, throw him outside. All the machanos. We had the picture over here. All 3 machanos. So now he needs to be protected from the rain, from the sun. But this shar, this is called shar nikoner. This famous with the 15 steps and everything, right over shar nikoner. That doesn't have a kedusha inside the shar. Why? So, real quickly, the Mitzayri has to bring 3 korbanos. There's a whole process. He goes to the mikvah. Finally, he's almost tar. Almost. He's a hair of Shem. They have to take the blood from the asham and put it on his right thumb, his right toe, the big, large toe, and on his ear. Problem is, how does he get his thumb into the Beis HaMikdash? He's tamei. You can't bring the blood outside. That's Yaartzeit. You can't bring it outside. So what do? He just sticks his thumb in. His toe and his ear. They schlep his ear like my father used to do, shalsheles. Schlep it in. And you know what I'm talking about? You ever heard of shalsheles? That was my father's punishment. Shalsheles 3 times. Okay, fine. So you do a shalsheles thing, you schlep his ear this way, and you put the blood on. So there's Shaila here. Shaila, did the Torah say, this is how you do it, and Memela, you don't ask any questions? Or there's another pshat, that you see the miktsas is nothing, just a little part of it is nothing. The Torah lets that fly. Have a wonderful day. Share my list, my group, Adonai shemo b'koliti in zok tashavas tikol lechanoi. Im Adonai tishmo ya Adonai miyamoid. Kimcha haslicha leman tivorei. Kivisi Adonai kisel nafshi ladinoi. Shimon nabagish laboiker. Kisel Adonai. Kim Adonai chesed v'arbei moifedus. With Bais Israel, v'kol Bnei Yisrael, acheni kol Bais Israel, anasurim b'tzor v'shivya. Hoim dem bein bayom ubein bayamosha. Hamokim yirachim aleim. ויצאים מצור לבוכה, ומאפל אלוהירו, ושיב את הגאולה, השתו בגלוב זמן קוראים, ונאמר אמן. Well, you don't have to bring anything. Where did you just come from? From Renana. You came from Renana?
Yeah.
Tzvat /
They only make 800 bottles. There's no sulfites, no additives. I know you appreciate wine.
It tastes good. Does it taste good? That's the shayla.
Mama, she tasted great.
It better not taste good, because if it tastes good, I'm going to want more. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming, Shmuley. And thanks for sticking. Okay, good. Come to our minyan.
I am.
Oh, to the. You see the pacing. What? Yo, I missed you. Where were you the whole week? Where were you? A what? I didn't hear what he said. A private message. A private message. Wow. 15%. 15%. You Rabbi said, look who's on. Mark Steinberg is on. Big Zach. It's a big thing. Shalom Aleichem, Mark.
But Benny, what you said is completely true.
Which part? You're also not into that? You don't like to bench, huh?
Especially not on Pesach. On a Pesach Shabbos.
How about a mappel? How about Gedal? You ever said a mappel in your life?
Yeah, I said it last night. I said on Shabbos. No one's called me.
Wow. Yeshua. When you were in Eretz Yisrael, your excuse was you're recruiting other people. That's why you don't listen to the shir. What's the excuse now that you're in Chicago? What are you doing now in Chicago? Why don't you listen to the shir? There's not an answer. There's garnish. You're not going to hear an answer. No, I'm Yishkoyach. What? There's no minion here. Yeshua, you know what your father-in-law told me? He gave me a lot of inside information. First of all, he said that you bought your wife a cake. Okay? You're supposed to buy your wife flowers. Cake is whatever. But another thing he told me that you told your wife, why don't we just move to Chicago? You offered her to move here. Are you crazy? You're going to leave the shir like that? You think I don't know these things? How dare you, Yeshua, I can't believe it.
Wow. Every guy that you back will be calling you every night.
Yeah, oh, very good. Every guy that you brought will be calling you every day. It'll be in a comma and texting. 25 texts at 4 in the morning.
You're supposed to be here with me. You're stuck in Israel. I tried coming back. You can't get me on a
He offered it to his wife in a serious way. Yeah, he was serious. She said no. I think she declined, but he wants to move. Where do you live exactly if you move to Chicago?
3501 Arthur.
Whose house is that?
Why would he leave?
Because he doesn't like MDY. He doesn't like the shir anymore. He wants to move to Chicago.
So he's not talking.
Mark Ashkenazi, next time you send somebody a picture frame with a picture of me in it, you have to ask him where it's going. Two things: it should not be for the bathroom, but it cannot be with the Chofetz Chaim on the same.
He sent me the picture that day when he put it up. I was like, Rebelli, I invited you to come to Muncie for Purim.
I can't believe he's going to be stuck there for Purim. That's crazy.
Ellie, I had a good conversation with my brother-in-law, and I stopped the whole situation now. So unless I find someone in...
You sure? You know what happened to my sister? You know, don't be sad. So my sister got a permission to come to Israel, and my brother-in-law didn't. She came to Eretz Yisrael. They stopped her. They threw her in an ambulance with her suitcases and brought her to a hotel, locked her in a room. And this is a hotel. You can't come out of your room 24/7. But they let you out. They take one chayal, and they let you take some fresh air for 30 minutes. So my wife was on the phone for hours and hours with government officials. Don't ask. And we were able to get her out a half hour before Shabbos.